Welcome, listeners, to another thrilling episode of Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig, the podcast where we venture into the murky waters of unsolved crimes and baffling mysteries. I'm your host, Roger Heilig, and today, we're setting sail on a journey through one of Hollywood's most perplexing cases, the mysterious death of the beautiful, talented, and revered actress, Natalie Wood. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with Natalie, she was an icon of the silver screen, a starlet whose life was tragically cut short under circumstances that are as chilling as they are mystifying. Her untimely demise in 1981 left fans and investigators alike scratching their heads, and nearly 4 decades later, the questions remain. Was it a tragic accident, or something more sinister? But before we dive into the deep end of this enigmatic case, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Beyond the Grassy Knoll: How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe. It's a riveting read that delves into one of America's greatest mysteries and examines how the assassination of JFK reshaped our society in ways we're still grappling with today. You can find it on Amazon and Audible, and trust me, it's one to add to your collection. Alright, grab your life vests and your detective hat, because we're about to embark on a voyage through tangled timelines, shifting testimonies, and a sea of speculation. Stay tuned as we unravel the enigmatic circumstances surrounding Natalie Wood's death and explore why this case continues to haunt us to this very day. Natalie Wood. Her name might ring a bell even if you can't quite place her face. Born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco, Wood would go on to become one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Picture this: a girl barely in her teens standing toe-to-toe with the legendary James Dean. That's right, at just 16, Natalie Wood starred in Rebel Without a Cause, which catapulted her into stardom. It's hard to understate what an impact that role had, not just on her career but on 1950s cinema as a whole. Now, let's take a little cinematic stroll. Imagine you're watching West Side Story. Those stunning musical numbers, that captivating storyline, that's Natalie Wood bringing Maria to life. Her performance in this iconic film solidified her status as a household name. And let's be honest, who hasn't tried to sing along to Tonight at least once, channeling their inner Natalie Wood? And the accolades didn't stop there. Her role in Splendor in the Grass earned her an Oscar nomination, cementing her as a versatile and serious actress. Whether it was young love and rebellion or the complexities of adulthood, Wood had a knack for capturing the essence of her characters, making them human and relatable. But Natalie wasn't just a one-trick pony. Her career spanned several decades and genres, oscillating between big, bold musicals and intense dramatic roles. The girl had range. And yet, despite her illustrious career, she was always more than just her filmography. She was a beloved figure, a style icon of her time, and a reflection of Hollywood's golden age. In a world where celebrity entourages are more closely guarded than the crown jewels, Wood's life, her relationships, her joys, and her struggles played out under the relentless glare of the limelight. Her marriage to Robert Wagner, with its fair share of ups and downs, fueled the tabloids, while her moments of brilliance on-screen continued to fuel her fans' admiration. By the time she reached her early 40s, Natalie had done it all. She was a child star who made the leap to teenage sensation, then seamlessly transitioned into a respected adult actress. And just when it seemed like she could sit back and coast on her laurels, she was working on yet another film, Brainstorm. With a career that most could only dream of, Natalie Wood seemed to have the world at her feet. Yet behind the glamour and the accolades was a woman navigating the highs and lows of fame, a woman whose life and untimely, tragic death continues to captivate and mystify us. Before we delve into the murky waters of that fateful night, it's important to remember who she was: a star that shone brightly, left us too soon, but will never be forgotten. So whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering her name, know this: Natalie Wood was, and still is, Hollywood royalty. Alright folks, let's set the scene for the tragic events leading up to Natalie Wood's untimely demise. Picture this: it's the Thanksgiving weekend of 1981, and Natalie, her husband Robert Wagner, and her co-star Christopher Walken are spending time on a 55-foot yacht named Splendor. Along with them is the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. Now, calling it just a leisurely trip would be an understatement. This was a swanky affair filled with Hollywood glamour and undercurrents of tension that one might mistake for a thriller plot. Natalie Wood, renowned for her roles in Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story, was a familiar face on the silver screen. By this time, she had earned her status as an A-list actress. Her marriage to Robert Wagner was equally high profile. They first got hitched in 1957, divorced in 1962, and then, like a classic Hollywood saga, remarried in 1972. Their romance had been played out in tabloids and magazines, making them one of the most talked about couples in Tinseltown. Enter Christopher Walken. Tall, brooding, and talented, Walken was Natalie's co-star in the science fiction film Brainstorm, which they were working on at the time. Their on-set chemistry had sparked more than just cinematic magic. Rumors of a romantic connection were rife. No wonder Robert Wagner wasn't exactly thrilled about Walken's presence on the yacht that weekend. Captain Dennis Davern, on the other hand, was a close associate of the Wagners. Having steered the Splendor through many nautical adventures, Davern knew the vessel like the back of his hand. But trust me, even he couldn't have navigated the murky waters of the human emotions aboard that night. Now, let's get to the interactions. The group arrived at the marina on Catalina Island, where they planned to dock the Splendor and indulge in some R&R. When they set sail, the initial atmosphere was relaxed, full of the usual camaraderie and banter. But as the evening wore on, the tone began to shift. The tipping point seemed to be the mounting tension between Wagner and Walken. Some reports suggest that Wagner was growing increasingly jealous of the attention Walken was paying to Natalie. According to various accounts, including those from the captain, heated discussions and even arguments punctuated the evening's events. Dinner was served aboard the yacht, and the wine flowed as freely as the conversation. It quickly became evident that alcohol would play a significant role that night. At some point during dinner, an argument broke out between Wagner and Walken over Natalie. Walken reportedly said something about Natalie's career taking precedence over anything else, which didn't sit well with Wagner. After dinner, the group reportedly went ashore for a drink at Doug's Harbor Reef, a waterfront restaurant on the island. They returned to the Splendor later that night, with tensions still simmering beneath the surface. It was back on the yacht that the argument escalated. According to Davern's later statements, the yacht's steady course veered into turbulence as the argument between Wagner and Walken grew more intense. But here's where the accounts start to diverge and conjecture slips in like a ship through foggy waters. One story suggests Wagner smashed a wine bottle and shouted, "What do you want to do? My wife?" Walken reportedly retreated to his cabin, leaving Natalie and Wagner to hash out their issues. Natalie then supposedly went to her own cabin, as the squabble subsided into an uneasy silence. What happened next remained shrouded in mystery. The last people to see Natalie Wood alive were Davern and Wagner. After that, all anyone knows is pure speculation. Some say they heard the dinghy scraping against the yacht's side. Others speak of muffled cries for help that could have been swallowed by the night. By the time anyone realized she was missing, Natalie Wood had vanished from the Splendor, leaving behind only questions and a lingering sense of tragedy. When her body was found later, floating in the water, the questions about that fateful trip multiplied. So there you have it, folks, the magnetic allure of Hollywood personalities intertwined with a chilling, unfolding tragedy. Natalie Wood's death wasn't just a headline, it was a story so full of dramatic turns that you'd think it was penned by a screenwriter. But as we know, life, or rather death in this case, can be stranger and sadder than fiction. Alright folks, let's take a trip back to that fateful night in November 1981, the night when the glamorous starlet Natalie Wood vanished into the dark waters off Catalina Island. Picture it, a cool, crisp evening, with the moon casting an eerie glow on the waves. Natalie was aboard her yacht, fittingly named Splendor, along with her husband, Robert Wagner, her coaster, Christopher Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. Now, let's set the stage with a little timeline action. The evening starts pleasantly enough with Natalie, Robert, and Christopher heading to Doug's Harbor Reef, a charming little restaurant on Catalina Island. Dinner and drinks flowed freely, perhaps a bit too freely if you catch my drift. Reports indicate that the trio enjoyed a lavish meal, washed down with plenty of fine wine. By around 10 p.m., the gang decided to head back to Splendor. The yacht itself, now swaying gently in the marina, was soon filled with a mix of convivial laughter and tense undertones. You see, whispers and later testimonies hint at a brewing argument between Natalie and Robert. The nature of this disagreement? Murky, like the waters they were anchored over. As the clock strikes around 11 p.m., things get heated. Witnesses from nearby boats reported hearing raised voices, particularly a man shouting, possibly Robert's, followed by the unmistakable sound of a dinghy being untied from the yacht. And then, a chilling silence. Weather-wise, it wasn't exactly a night for a dip. The temperature hovered around the 50s, and the currents near Catalina can be notoriously unforgiving. To top it off, Natalie had a professed fear of dark water, a phobia that makes the story even more haunting. So, what happens next? By around midnight, the boat's calm facade is shattered. Robert Wagner reportedly goes to check on Natalie and discovers she's missing, along with the yacht's dinghy, the Valiant. His immediate reaction? Panic. He alerted the captain, Dennis Davern, and after some initial frantic searching aboard the yacht, they made a decision that continues to baffle experts and onlookers alike. They waited before calling for help. Imagine it. Nearly 2 hours passed from when Natalie was first noticed missing to when the Coast Guard was alerted around 1:30 a.m. Why the delay? Some say Wagner wanted to avoid a public scandal. Others suggest a fog of inebriation clouded their judgment. As the first light of dawn stretched over the horizon, the coast rescue teams found what they had dreaded. Natalie's body was discovered floating about a mile from the yacht. She was clad in a nightgown, socks, and a red down jacket, floating face up in the shallow water. Now, let's pause here for a second and let that sink in. The immediate reaction on Splendor played a crucial role in shaping the mystery. Robert Wagner expressed immediate, palpable grief upon the discovery. Christopher Walken, now a side character in a surreal nightmare, remained quieter, his reactions subdued and internalized. The public would later learn that the dinghy, the Valiant, was also found nearby. Strangely, it appeared as if Natalie had tried to board it. It was found scratch-free and undamaged, which raised more intriguing questions than answers. Did she attempt an escape? Was she driven by fear, confusion, or something else entirely? The night's events outlined a puzzle that would only deepen with the ensuing investigation. At this point, disbelief and sorrow swept through Hollywood, and the media went into overdrive. How could such a beloved actress meet such a grim fate? And why were the key figures on that boat so inexplicably hesitant to act? The night Natalie Wood went missing is charged with enough drama, mystery, and conflicting testimonies to fill countless books and podcasts, heck, even a few movies. But what we are left with is a ghostly mosaic of half-remembered events, conflicting stories, and endless speculation. And there you have it, the chilling, perplexing night that Natalie Wood disappeared into the ocean's embrace, leaving behind a cloud of secrets and the haunting question we all want an answer to. What really happened on the Splendor that night? Alright folks, buckle up as we navigate the stormy seas of Natalie Wood's mysterious death, focusing on the investigation and autopsy findings that followed her tragic demise. It's a case that has all the ingredients of a classic Hollywood thriller, but unfortunately, this is a real-life whodunit. When the news of Natalie Wood's drowning hit the headlines, the shockwaves were felt far and wide. A beloved actress, a foggy night, and a boat named Splendor, it had all the makings of a Tinseltown tragedy. The initial investigation was swift, but as we'll see, it left more questions than answers. So, let's rewind to that fateful morning on November 29, 1981. Wood's body was discovered floating in the waters off Catalina Island, California. She was clad in a nightgown, socks, and a down jacket. The official cause of death, as reported by the Los Angeles County coroner, was accidental drowning and hypothermia. Case closed, right? Not so fast. The coroner's report suggested that Wood had consumed a significant amount of alcohol, as well as a painkiller and a motion sickness medication, all of which could have muddled her sense of balance. The theory was that she may have slipped and fallen into the water while trying to secure a dinghy that had been banging against the yacht in the middle of the night. It seemed plausible on the surface, but as we delve deeper, things start to get murky. One of the key pieces of evidence was the dinghy itself, found floating near Wood's body. The ignition was off, and oars were still in place. It didn't look like she had made any serious attempt to steer it. Could she have simply stumbled and fallen in? Or was there more to the story? Now let's shift our focus to the eyewitness accounts, which only add layers of complexity. Robert Wagner, Natalie's husband, initially said that he assumed his wife had taken the dinghy to shore. He mentioned a quarrel that night but didn't think it was serious enough for her to leave the yacht in such conditions. And then there's the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. He later changed his story, claiming that he heard Wagner and Wood in a heated argument, followed by a profound silence. Davern also suggested that Wagner was more concerned about managing the public relations fallout than finding Natalie when she was first discovered missing. Christopher Walken, the other celebrity on board that night, hasn't said much, maintaining that he was asleep during the critical moments. His statements didn't throw much light on what transpired, but added to the speculation mosh pit that is this case. Adding to the suspicion were the bruises found on Natalie Wood's body. While the initial autopsy report didn't consider them conclusive evidence of foul play, the presence of fresh bruises on her arms and legs were later described in the 2013 reopened investigation as consistent with someone being assaulted. Ah yes, the infamous reopening of the case. You'd think 4 decades would bring some clarity, but instead, it has revived the whispers. In 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the cold case, and in 2012, the coroner amended the cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. They cited conflicting witness statements and unresolved issues around the bruising. This reclassification essentially changed the nature of the investigation, giving it a grittier, unresolved edge. Despite the re-examination of evidence and newfound fervor in the investigation, no new charges have been brought. Wagner remains a person of interest, but he has never been charged with any crime related to Wood's death. The ambiguity persists, fed by tabloid headlines and true crime enthusiasts who won't let the case go cold. In summary, the initial investigation and autopsy left much to be desired. What began as a sad but seemingly simple case of accidental drowning has, over the years, evolved into a Pandora's box of theories, suspicions, and what-ifs. So, dear listeners, as we sail away from this segment, remember, in Hollywood, the line between fact and fiction is often as blurred as those mysterious weekend waters off Catalina Island. Now, let's pivot to the unresolved questions and theories surrounding Natalie Wood's untimely death. Spoiler alert, this mystery is reminiscent of a Hollywood thriller more than real life. So, here's the deal. Natalie Wood's tragic end on that fateful November night in 1981 has generated a plethora of theories, each more tantalizing than the last. Let's dive into the deep waters of speculation, shall we? First up, we have the suspicions about foul play. Why? Because the initial ruling of accidental drowning didn't sit well with everyone, especially not with those familiar with Natalie Wood, or should I say, Natalie wouldn't set foot in the water would. Yes, folks, it's well documented that Natalie had a paralyzing fear of dark water. Yet the official story tells us she got up in the middle of the night, in her nightgown, to secure a dinghy. Because who doesn't, right? Then, there's the matter of the tumultuous relationships on board. The yacht Splendor wasn't just for luxury cruising that night. It was a cocktail of tension, jealousy, and drama. According to accounts, Natalie, her husband Robert Wagner, and co-star Christopher Walken had a heated argument before she went missing. Multiple parties have hinted that Wagner, fueled by jealousy over Natalie's flirtatious rapport with Walken, could have had something to do with her disappearance. Wagner himself admitted in his memoir that he was jealous and argued with Natalie, but he maintains his innocence regarding any foul play. And let's talk about the captain, Dennis Davern. Originally quiet, he opened up decades later, claiming that Wagner delayed the search for Natalie. Davern went so far as to suggest that foul play was not just a possibility, but a strong likelihood. Why the silence for so long? Good question, but it has certainly thrown gasoline on the conspiracy theory fire. Eyewitness accounts from that evening are as jumbled as a bag of puzzle pieces from different puzzles. Marilyn Wayne, who was on a neighboring boat, claimed to have heard cries for help that night but couldn't pinpoint their source. Marilyn's boyfriend did hear a man's voice saying, "Take it easy, we'll get you," which lends a haunting credibility to her claim. One of the most baffling elements of the case involves the bruises found on Natalie's body. The autopsy revealed multiple fresh bruises on her arms, and an abrasion on her left cheek. Could they have been from her falling overboard? Possibly. Or were they signs of a struggle? As juicy a mystery as you'd find in those dime store novels she was once so good at bringing to life. Fast forward to 2011, and the case gets a new surge of interest. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopens the investigation after Dennis Davern's changed statements and emerging new, albeit not conclusive, pieces of evidence. They even name Robert Wagner a person of interest in 2018. Despite this, the mystery lingers on, cloaked in more questions than before. Conspiracy theorists feast on every morsel of inconsistency. Did a fight ensue that ended tragically? Did Walken or Davern know more than they let on? Or is the most tragic, albeit mundane, explanation a tragic accident? The truth? The unresolved nature of Natalie Wood's death epitomizes Hollywood. The mix of glamour and grit, light and shadows, a grand spectacle cut short by a dark twist. And as long as there are more questions than answers, as long as the truth remains as murky as the ocean depths she feared, this case will stay alive in the public imagination, a haunting cliffhanger waiting for closure. Stay tuned, mystery lovers, because in the world of unresolved deaths, nothing is ever truly over, just hidden beneath the surface. Now, let's fast forward to the present day, or at least the more recent past. For many years, the tragic tale of Natalie Wood's death floated in the murky waters of unresolved mysteries. But here's where it gets interesting. The case was reopened not once, but twice. Yes, you heard that right, twice. In 2011, nearly 3 decades after that fateful night, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department decided to take another look at Wood's case. Why? New information had surfaced, prompting detectives to consider the possibility that her death was not the mere accident it had long been classified as. This renewed interest was sparked by statements made by the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. He went public with claims that he had heard a loud argument between Natalie Wood and her husband, Robert Wagner, on the night she disappeared. According to Davern, Wagner's actions following the argument were suspicious, to say the least. He alleged that Wagner had delayed the search for Wood, contributing to the tragedy. But the plot thickens. In 2018, the investigation took yet another twist when the Sheriff's Department officially named Robert Wagner a person of interest. It was a noteworthy shift in the case, especially given Wagner's previous cooperation, or lack thereof, with authorities. Witnesses from the original investigation also started to speak out, offering new or altered testimonies. Particularly compelling was the account of Marilyn Wayne, who was anchored nearby on her own boat that night. Wayne claimed she heard a woman's cries for help, but in the darkness and confusion, she couldn't pinpoint where they were coming from. As if that's not enough to keep you on the edge of your seat, new pieces of evidence also entered the fray. For example, forensic experts re-examined the autopsy report and noted numerous bruises on Wood's body that seemed inconsistent with an accidental fall into the water. This spurred further speculation that some form of altercation had occurred, one that may have ultimately led to Wood's demise. Now, let's be clear. Despite these new leads and reopened investigations, no conclusive evidence has put the mystery to rest. Wagner, through his attorney, has consistently denied any wrongdoing, maintaining that Wood's death was a tragic accident. And so, the speculation continues. Was it a case of marital discord gone horribly wrong? Was there an accidental fall fueled by a mix of alcohol in the rocky waters? Or do we dare to entertain the more sinister theories of foul play? Whatever the truth may be, the reinvestigations have done one crucial thing. They've kept the conversation alive. They've ensured that Natalie Wood's untimely death continues to be examined, questioned, and explored. It's a testament to her enduring impact, not just as a celebrated actress, but as a figure whose story compels us to seek out the truth, no matter how elusive it may be. So, rest assured, dear listeners, we haven't seen the last of developments in the Natalie Wood case. New theories and testimonies continue to bubble to the surface, much like the memories of a golden age in Hollywood that she so vividly represents. Until then, the unresolved nature of her death remains a haunting chapter in the book of Tinseltown Mysteries. And there you have it, folks, the tragic and enigmatic story of Natalie Wood, a Hollywood star whose life was cut short under the most mysterious of circumstances. We explored her glittering career, the final moments aboard the yacht Splendor, the controversial investigation, and the unresolved questions that still spark debate today. What truly happened that fateful night remains a puzzle, wrapped in layers of conflicting accounts and unresolved theories. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of Hollywood's most perplexing mysteries. A big shout out to our sponsor, Beyond the Grassy Knoll: How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe. Make sure to check it out on Amazon and Audible for another captivating exploration into American history. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more spine-tingling stories on Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig. From unsolved crimes to the most baffling cases, we've got a lot more intrigue coming your way. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and above all, keep safe.